So hello, my name is Melanie Gertis. I'm the licensed counselor for Victoria College, and we have Samuel with us today from Midcoast Family Services, and he's going to do a presentation on tobacco,
Correct.
on tobacco and vaping, what you need to know.
All right, thank you, Melanie. Yes, my name is Samuel Villa, and I'm with Midcoast Family Services. And today I'm going to do a presentation regarding tobacco and vaping. Um, Usually, our target audience is usually school-age children. However, we do community outreach and do these presentations for adults, college students, and just to get the word out there um, about the dangers and the consequences about vaping and tobacco and other drugs as well. But for today's topic, we are going to be focusing solely on the tobacco and vaping aspect. Just as a preference, this presentation is just to inform, just to give you information. This presentation isn't geared towards rehabilitation or offering services to help quit or to deter anybody from quitting smoking. It's just an information gathering presentation. Now, while receiving that information, if you decide that uh, stopping smoking tobacco or vaping will be beneficial to you, then that's just an added bonus to our job. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I do have some slides available. Sorry, that's not what I want. Let's see here. This was working earlier. I think this might be it. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. All right, so sorry. Technology has failed me today. Uh, while I do have slides available, it not isn't very necessary, especially for the adult population. So if it's okay with you, I'll go ahead and present my presentation to you without the use of slides, but you'll still have the information readily available to you. And in the event that my slides do come back, Melanie, if it's possible, I can email them to you, and that way you can send them out in an email or just have them on a website or something, if that's okay.
That sounds good.
All right. So first of all, I am with Midcoast Family Services, and we do have different departments. I work with the youth department, where we primarily work with individuals from K through 12th grade, and we do presentations at schools and community functions. We also have a homeless department, a women's shelter, and our thrift store. Now, if you're not familiar with our thrift store, 100% of the proceeds that we make from the thrift store goes to the women's shelter, and that's for upkeep, supplies. Uh, Sometimes the population includes the children of the women, and so it buys toys and toiletries for the children as well. Um, and also, a lot of people don't realize it, but also people bring their pets to the women's shelter, and we do offer services for the pets as well, dog food and whatnot. Our mission is to empower children, individuals, and families to live free from family violence, homelessness, sexual assault, and substance abuse. And like I said, we do have the women's shelter, the youth department. We also have housing and rental assistance for those individuals that may have issues with upcoming if they might be getting evicted from their apartment. We do help out with rental assistance, so that way they don't end up being homeless. All right. So like I said, today we're going to be talking about tobacco and vaping. And what vaping is, it's by the use of an e-cigarette. Now, a lot of people might call them juuling, tanks, mods, uh, disposable cigarettes, but the we're going to focus on is the actual e-cigarette, and all it is an electronic cigarette. Uh, it was invented by a Chinese pharmacist named Han Link, and Mr. Link's father passed away from lung cancer. And while he is a pharmacist, he did have a background in engineering. So he devised the very prototype e-cigarette, which was not only going to help him quit smoking, but also others. And so primarily the first e-cigarette was meant to deter people from smoking. Now, it did work for Mr. Link, and it did work for many of the people that purchased his item in China. Now, tobacco companies, in their infinite wisdom, were seeing their proceeds decrease in Asia. And so they did some research and found that there was a product out that was deterring cigarette use. So they went ahead and they bought the e-cigarette patent from Mr. Link. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, why are tobacco companies buying a product that's helping people quit smoking? Well, obviously because they want to monopolize it and use it for their benefit. And so they took the prototype e-cigarette and used it and made it to where they market it as a tool to quit smoking, which for adults, that's exactly what it's made for. Because while an e-cigarette is safer than an actual cigarette, I wouldn't exactly say that it's safe. One of the things that the marketing uh, geniuses in the e-cigarette companies say that it's simply a water vapor because there's no scent to it. That is half true. No, there is no scent to it, but it's not water vapor. In order for it to be water vapor, it would literally have to be water that's turned into a gas. What e-cigarettes emit is an aerosol. An aerosol not only is water, but also the chemicals that are in the pods, which contain the flavoring, which contain the flavor of a nicotine for the smoker that's wanting to quit. Now, statistics show that yes, some people had quit smoking with the use of e-cigarettes. However, the amount of teenagers, we used to say the amount of high school students, but now with the research that's coming in daily, uh, now it's just teenagers and even students as young as 11 and 10 years old. As an aside, 2 years ago, I received a request from one of the outlying counties here to speak to their school about vaping. And to my surprise, it was an elementary school. Apparently, there was an influx of fifth graders who started vaping and were actually vaping at the school. So while it's meant for adults that are trying to quit smoking, it is getting into the hands of teenagers and children, and it's very easy to hide. It's non-detectable. a lot of times they look like flash drives, which of course, you need a flash drive to save your work. And so while a student can take their e-cigarette to school and hide it as a zip drive. The components of the e-cigarette include a battery, a coil, and a sensor. And the coil heats up the juice that's in the pod, heats it up to form a gas, which in turn is ingested in the lungs and displayed as a aerosol. There are different variations of e-cigarettes. There's the cig-alike, which is an e-cig. It was the very first form of a cigarette where it actually looks like a cigarette, but it's made out of plastic. Those came about in 2007. There's vape pens, which have higher temperatures uh, and have more e-liquid in the cartridge and allows users to control how often they intake. And then there's mods. Mods are the large-sized modifiable e-cigarettes that have more aerosol. Um, and I think the fact that it can be modified is equally as dangerous when it gets into the hands of teenagers, because they can modify it to where they're inhaling more liquid than it is what's supposed to be. Um, Next is we're gonna pick on the Juul brand for a little bit. Now, the Juul brand, within the years, they've been going through a lot of lawsuits. You see them not so much marketing online anymore. So now more often you see Juul associated with some kind of lawsuit because they were very complicit when they were marketing to teenagers. There was a talk show, a TV show, CBS This Morning, where the president of the Juul company was interviewed, and he specifically said, he looked at the camera and told the audience, "Kids, don't vape. If you're not a smoker, don't vape." And that was great. That was great on his part. However, he said it on CBS This Morning, which comes on at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning. I don't know any teenagers who are waking up at 7 in the morning and watching CBS This Morning. Uh, so while that was a neat little trick that the Juul lawyers said, hey, if you just say this, you're in the clear. They were, like I said, they were very complicit when it came to marketing. While the president of the Juul company did say not to Juul. If you're not a smoker, don't Juul. His actions spoke louder than words. Because the very next day, on the following Monday, Juul had a complete overhaul of their Instagram page where young people were vaping, attractive people, attractive men, attractive women, wearing hip clothes, colorful pictures on their website, and it was clear that it was being marketed to teenagers. Uh, all the hashtag, all the hashtags that they attached to their post were geared towards teenagers, and that was in 2017. Now there is no Juul Instagram page. There is no kind of social media uh, footprint that Juul has, mainly because of the numerous lawsuits that they've been under. While they're still operational, marketing is pretty much zero. Now there's a thing called cloud chasing. Cloud chasing is basically when a vape person who's vaping will make tricks and make uh, ring clouds, or they call it chasing the dragon, where huge plumes of smoke will be released from their mouth. Uh, while as adults, we may not find that very attractive or appealing or entertaining, kids love that. There's TikTok videos of people doing that. There's contests. It's pretty much a status symbol of how big of a cloud chaser you are. And this age of social media where we want to get the most likes and the most clicks, uh, that kind of behavior does get a lot of clicks. So cloud chasing does have a lot of impact when it comes to students using vape products. Uh, I did my own kind of research because I do go to two of the middle schools in the area. I go to Cade Middle School here in Victoria and Travis Middle School in Port Lavaca. I surveyed 220 eighth grade students at Cade and 138 eighth graders at Travis Middle School. And I asked the students, why would you think, or why do you vape? It was anonymous. And so I specified that if you are vaping, why do you vape? And I asked the students, if you don't, why do you think people vape? And 53.3% said curiosity, 38.8 said friend or a family member uses, so they use. 5% enjoy the flavor, and 11% use to do tricks. So the more than half of the students said that it was out of curiosity. And so when we're seeing the social media aspect, when we see the popularity of making videos of vaping, uh, it's not so much that they enjoy doing it. It's more so they're very curious about what's going on in the world. Like I said, it's all about the clicks. It's all about the videos. It's all about getting that attention. Um, and I didn't know if I mentioned this, but the president of the Juul company, his name is Keith Burns, which I believe as recently as January, I want to say he resigned from that post. Um, I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of information about the Juul company. Of course, it's a brand of cigarette, but it's become so popular of the brand that it actually became a verb, um, where it's not called smoking anymore. It's called juuling. That's how popular it's become. Um, it looks similar to a USB flash drive, and one Juul pod actually has enough e-juice, enough juice in their cartridge as just one pack of cigarettes. And and that's another false advertising that companies put out there, that their product does not contain nicotine. Well, as the research has gone on, as more people have become aware of the dangers of smoking and vaping, the Food Drug Administration did find not only nicotine but an abundance amount of nicotine in e-cigarettes. And here's a quote from CNBC from March 2021. E-cigarette maker Juul has previously been under the spotlight for its marketing practices, especially towards youth. In 2019, Juul announced it would cease all product advertising in broadcast, print, and digital channels in the US. So, like I mentioned earlier, while they might not have a big footprint in the advertising world, they do their advertising by word of mouth. And like I said, it's become so popular that it's become a verb. Okay. And through the survey that I conducted, uh, what I asked, what do you think is in an e-cigarette? What do you think is in that Juul pod? 66% said it's just flavoring. 5% said that they believe marijuana is in it. 13% nicotine. 13% said they didn't know. And and it just goes to show that a, I don't want to say popular, but a narrative that we see a lot of these days is I'm not going to put anything in my body that I don't know what it is. And I think we see this especially with teenagers when they're juuling, when they're vaping. they truly do not know what's in that cigarette, because all they hear is from their family members who smoke, or from uh, the TikTok videos that they see and Snapchat videos that they see, that it's safe because it doesn't have any kind of smell. If you can't smell it, it must be safe. It's just water vapor. So yes, 66% said it's simply flavoring. It's basically candy that we're inhaling. When in reality, there's all sorts of chemicals that are in e-cigarettes, not only for flavoring, but also for longevity. One of the main culprits of the dangers of vaping is propylene glycol, which causes popcorn lung. Contrary what some might believe, popcorn lung isn't where your lungs look like popcorn. They call it popcorn lung because propylene glycol is an additive used in what used to be an additive used in microwave popcorn. And there was a company that was making uh, microwave popcorn, and all the workers at the facility all started to get sick, and they were inhaling the propylene glycol. And I want to say over 50% of those workers in that factory ended up getting lung cancer. And so, and these students and people who use vaping as a way to quit smoking is straight up inhaling the propylene glycol, mixed with other additives as well. There's glycerin, which is highly flammable, and the various flavoring that, contrary what some people might say, but it is not approved by the Food and Drug Administration. And here's another quote I want to read from CNBC. Actually, it's from livestrong.com. The reasons people use e-cigarettes are shifting. Fewer people are using them to quit smoking, and more people are using them to boost their social image. And again, there's a social media aspect again when talking about juuling. And it could be for anything. People will do anything just to get their 15 minutes of fame. Um, and I think when it comes to juuling and using e-cigarettes, I think it was a good idea at the time to deter people from smoking cigarettes, and then it turned into a money grab where tobacco companies are actually using vape pens to increase the amount of cigarettes, where it's at having the opposite effect, where people are not trying to quit smoking, they're actually starting to smoke. Uh, and when you talk about teenagers and adolescents that are starting to vape, um, it causes them to start smoking cigarettes. So it does indeed have the opposite effect, where they start off vaping, but they end up using actual cigarettes the older they get. And lastly, there is an illness called EVALI, which stands for e-cigarette vaping produce associated lung injury, which as recently as 2015 was not even a diagnosis. And now there is a code in medical facilities that now code for EVALI. And like I said, it's e-cigarette vaping produce associated lung injury. The symptoms are fever, chills, cough, difficulty breathing, nausea, vomiting, loss of appetite, extreme weight loss. From the Ohio State Wexner Medical Center, Joanna Tsai, MD, said, there is an inflammatory response that occurs in the lung, presumed due to something in the aerosol from vaping. And that's the key word, the aerosol. So be wary of those who say that it's safe because it's just vapor, when in reality it is an aerosol because there are chemicals involved. And not only the EVALI, but there's other risks from smoking, tobacco, and vaping. Um, Head and neck cancer, lung cancer, leukemia, stomach cancer, colon cancer, and bladder cancer. And they also have chronic diseases such as stroke, blindness, gum infection, aortic rupture, heart disease, pneumonia, hardening of the arteries, chronic lung disease, and asthma, reduced fertility, and also hip fracture due to the deterioration of the bones. And going into the mental health aspect of it as well, because nicotine is a stimulant, it may give those that are suffering from anxiety a false sense of calm, where they use nicotine as a calming effect, and it's having the opposite effect because it's a stimulant. How can you use a stimulant to help you calm you down? Because the body is so used to the nicotine that the threshold isn't as high. So people use cigarettes to calm down. So they smoke the cigarette. So then they start to feel sick. So then the anxiety raises again. So now they smoke a cigarette to calm down. And so it's just a never-ending cycle when you become addicted to nicotine. Um, so not only do you have the mental health aspect, but also you'll have uh, the physical aspects as well, uh, the withdrawal, the nervousness, the irritability, um, and the only way for a person to cure that is to smoke another cigarette. So that's why quitting is so hard, and that's why when adults who use vaping the appropriate way, it would really help if they would advocate uh, to students to not to start smoking and not to start vaping, because we can only do so much. So it would be a real great help if those who do use vaping appropriately to go out ahead of the problem and speak on their behalf of why it's important to not get involved in vaping or just not use nicotine altogether. Do you have any questions, any comments, anything that I need to go over again?
Hi, this is Darla. I
Yes,
appreciate
ma'am.
the presentation. I really do. It was very interesting. I do have a couple questions. Um, are cigarettes cheaper, or the vape pens, or the e-cigarettes, or which ones cost less?
Actually, the e-cigarettes cost less
Okay.
because you can buy a pack of cigarettes and depending on how often you smoke, can last you a day or two. Whereas you buy a pod, the actual pod might be more expensive than the cigarette, but
Mhm.
it'll last longer. So you're not having to uh, purchase more or purchase as much times where you can just go to the store, buy a pod, and it can last you a week or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my other question was, and please forgive my ignorance, I'm older. All right, I'm an old
No,
lady.
no.
So do kids use this use the jewels and the e-pens and all that? Do they use that with marijuana in that in the
Yes,
they do?
yes,
Okay.
right. And while it doesn't, you would think that the fact that one of the alluring things about using vape pens is that you don't smell anything.
Mhm.
Well, if you use marijuana, it's going to smell like marijuana,
Okay.
So uh, and and what I don't get, I've never received a straight answer from a student is why they take it to school thinking that they're going to get away with it, and it's like they believe everything they see on the internet, and all you need is one person to say that they vaped marijuana in school and didn't get caught. You just need one person to say that, and they'll run with it. So yes, they use marijuana, they uh, LSD, and that's the dangerous part of it is that they're being very haphazard using the vape pen.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the answer to that question. And then
Yes, ma'am.
my last question, I wrote it down. Let me see. Um, so if I understood you correctly, there is nicotine, and not just a little bit, but quite a bit of nicotine in all of these products. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Right. It was unregulated, so they could have said anything. The vaping uh, product marketers could have said anything, and people would have believed it. So yes, it was marketed as a tool to quit smoking. Didn't have any nicotine in it, so you're good. You're safe. You can get the smoking effect without the nicotine.
And
Well,
now, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The
no,
and
and then it was fine that they did have nicotine in it.
so now it is regulated, right?
It
It's
is
regulated
yes
now.
and no, yes and no. The tobacco companies do have very deep pockets, and they do have their influence in Washington. And while they are regulated, uh, it's not as regulated as you would think, as you would hope, because you can go to like a big brick and mortar store such as Walmart, HEB, some of the smoke shops you see in town, but there's the online uh, factor that isn't regulated. And I hopefully it'll be a while before hopefully it won't be a while before they start cracking down on vaping online sales.
Okay, and my last question, and then I'll stop hogging.
Oh, ask away, please.
I'll quit monopolizing all the time.
No,
And then
you're
my
fine.
last question is do you said that some of these elementary students were getting pins. Is there not an age limit? Where are they getting these devices?
Older brothers and sisters.
Okay.
That's my experience is when uh, students that young are getting caught, taking vape pens to school. It's either their parents
Mm.
or their older brother or sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate the answers. Thank you. It was interesting. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Uh-huh.
Just have one question because
Yes.
those questions kind of made me think of this. So I've heard people say, oh, I'm vaping, but it's just lavender, like it's not nicotine or exist, or were they being lied to and there was actually nicotine?
Yeah.
And so they say it's something that calms them down, but that it's not nicotine, but
Right, right. No, I honestly, with the research that I've done, um, any kind of vape pen, whether it's a mod or a jewel or just an average e-cigarette, it does have nicotine in it. Now, it may give off a scent of lavender, but there is nicotine in it. And if anybody, is trying to justify their use, and like I said, we're grown adults, we can make our own choices. Um, but I would refer them to say, well, maybe light a lavender candle, or go to uh, the essential oils. Just put some on your wrist, and you'll be okay. So
it's really interesting because I've heard of vaping and everything. I have
mhm.
kind of a fun. So that's a friend of mine uses it, but they explained it more as essential oils. And so I was
Right. And essential oils are great. Yeah, I mean, I've used essential oils because I have anxiety and medication doesn't work for me. And yeah, sometimes especially to help me sleep. But there's a difference between putting some essential oil on your wrist or lighting a candle and inhaling it. And so that's why I wouldn't want to inhale any kind of essential oil.
that's kind of scary too that I guess I'm glad they're cracking down on it, but that
Yeah.
people are under.
Right. Hmm.
Well, I thought of one other thing. The younger people, and I say younger people, and not all of them, but uh, folks in their 20s, I'd say 18 to 25, are just adamant when you try to talk to them about vaping
Hmm.
and that it's bad. And that's probably the biggest reason why I'm listening to this, because I argue with my son's friends, um,
Hmm.
and we go back and forth, and then they're so convincing.
Yeah.
They're so convincing that they started, I started to doubt myself. I'm a healthcare worker and I
Yeah.
started to doubt myself. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need more information. Maybe I'm totally wrong.
Right.
But they're so dead set, and I don't know how you break that. I don't know how you get through that. Any
Yeah.
suggestions?
I mean, all we can do from my professional standpoint is get as much information as you can. And and like I said, I'm used to talking to 6th and 8th graders all day, every day, and trying to get through their head. It's impossible. But through and it can be a very stressful situation because you're trying to make a difference. You're trying to get them to break out of their bad habits, and they don't. And so we actually go to counseling. We do speak to somebody about how stressful our job is, and sometimes there are a lot of days where I just come home very defeated. And what we have to tell ourselves is we're not going to change anybody's mind. We're not going to change anybody's opinion one day out of the week for just 1 hour. What we can do is just plant that one little seed in their head, give them that one bit of information that can provide them with just 1 second of doubt. Maybe they might pause 5 seconds before they try that drug or drink that alcoholic beverage. And if they pause and if they think about something you said on Monday and they still remember on Friday, then that's a win. And as they get older and as they become more mature, maybe they might think twice before trying something. But it's all about the process. I think about when I was younger. I was hard-headed. I was convinced my way was the right way, and you're not going to change the way I think. Uh, but through time and patience, we found the way. And I think, ma'am, if you just keep on hounding them and provide them with more information, you'll get through them. You'll get through them. I promise.
Yeah, I never did anything wrong. I was an
Oh
angel.
no.
I did
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
I did a lot of things wrong. I was a difficult child,
yeah.
but the person that I'm thinking of, my son doesn't vape, but his girlfriend does, and she's
Hmm.
now a longtime girlfriend, and so I think they're going to wind up getting married,
Hmm.
which is great. But they're just also convinced it doesn't hurt in any way, and that I'm totally wrong. I'm just wrong. So
Hmm.
I'm going to take the information. I'm going to be armed with the information that you gave me, and so
Okay.
I'll go back and talk to him again, and
Okay.
God bless him.
So I guess I'm not invited to the wedding. Is that what you're saying?
You are invited to the wedding. In fact, they have
Okay.
you as the guest speaker.
Oh,
But
all right.
all of them vape, and they keep telling me there's nothing wrong with it, and I keep saying there is something wrong with it, but they're
Yeah.
addicted to it too, right? Like cigarettes, they're
Right.
addicted to it. It's not just that they
Hmm.
can stop at any time. That's the other thing I heard. Well, it's not like cigarettes, Mom. Hope can stop at any time. I don't think so.
Right.
Look at her.
Right.
She needs a fix right now. I don't know what you're
Right.
talking about.
And it's like, you give them, you give them a little bit of time and, present a challenge to them, just try for 1 week. And if they can't, say, well, congratulations, now you have an addiction.
I'll have to try that out.
Yeah.
Glad you mentioned that because I hear that a lot too. I have a lot of friends that somewhere we have to stop and they go through pods like crazy. So it's
Hmm.
interesting you said that's a whole pack of cigarettes in
Right.
one.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just like eating, I can eat a container of Pringles like that because they're so thin, you don't think you're eating so much, And it's the same thing, it's so little and it doesn't weigh you down. Cigarettes have a tendency of, you know, sticking to your clothes and just being, affecting your, your eyes and your lungs and you cough and you smoke. But if you vape, you feel fine. There's no scent. It doesn't wear you down. But after a while, just like anything else, just like Pringles, after a while, it starts to catch up to you. And when we were 20, we could eat, we could drink whatever we wanted with no kind of consequence. But as we get older, that those kind of behaviors end up hurting us at the end. I remember, pulling all-nighters in college, studying all night, and then stopping by Whataburger right before class. If I eat anything after 8 o'clock, I'm done. It's like I can't handle that. So yeah, age is the ultimate uh, reality check.
I can verify that.
Yeah, yeah.
You younger people, I can verify that.
Well, thanks for this is the first time this week that somebody's called me young, so I'll take it.
And I think I actually have some of the flyers or pamphlets on tobacco and vaping
Okay.
in the office. And if I don't, then I'll reach out to them and get some information on that. I wanted to mention that I was surprised by the survey results that you had. That was very interesting,
Right.
especially with it being local schools.
Yes. You know, it's one thing to hear uh, studies from other states, and you think, well, that's Minnesota, that's Florida, but to do actual surveys, unofficial surveys in this area, it kind of literally hits close to home. But yeah, you'll be surprised when I go to my middle schools. The straight A students, the students that never get in trouble, they'll straight up tell me, it's like when I first thing I do when I go home, I take out my vape pen and vape to help me calm down. It's like, calm down, you're in 8th grade. What do you have to worry about?
We won't tell them about bills yet. We won't.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, does anybody have any other questions or feedback or anything?
No, again, thank you. It was very informative. I
All right.
enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for stopping by. All right, thank you, Melanie.
Thank you. Y'all
Right,
have a good day.
bye. Have a good
Bye.
afternoon.